Hello and welcome back to another week and another episode of the Practice Odyssey. I am not Jen, I am Alex.
And I'm Jen.
and we hope that you're having a wonderful fall here wherever you are. I'm currently enjoying some nice colorful leaves in Germany, the southern part. Jen, how's the fall where you are? Or is it a different kind of fall?
Well, yeah, we're at the end of rainy season, and by golly gosh, it's raining. So you're welcome. This week's episode will be accompanied by the soothing and gentle backing track of Cambodian Rainstorm. There's not much I can do about it. All the windows are closed, and it's still really, really loud. So I guess we'll just take it as a soothing white noise. So yeah, if you are confused about why it sounds like there's a waterfall in my house, that's because there's one outside.
Oh my gosh. And Jen, guess what? Today's a special occasion for the podcast.
I believe, well, I do, because you told me. I'm very excited. Otherwise I would have forgotten, to be honest. I'm terrible with these things.
I set a reminder, so. But yes, listeners, today is officially 1 year since Jen and I started podcasting. So it's our podcast anniversary.
It's a podcast anniversary. I like a podiversary. Podcast anniversary.
But yes, oh my gosh. So for our special 1 year anniversary podcast, Jen and I decided to go back to our French roots, and we chose a French methodology. It's been an American podcast season.
It has been an American season, completely unintentionally, but there we go. Back to Europe.
Exactly. So, and Jen, what was our book this week? What did we live the last 2 weeks by for our podcast?
We have been looking at, I've got to figure out how to say it properly, in my best French. My best French, it is Le Souffle, Le Son. The Wind, the Sound by Philippe Bernold. So, I'll give you a bit of background info on Philippe. This is from his website. Okay, so Philippe Bernold began his musical studies in Colmar, France, and he studied the flute and later composition and conducting under René Matta. Then he went to the Paris Conservatory, where he earned the first prize in flute, and the next year, at the age of 23, he was appointed first flute of the National Opera Orchestra of Lyon. Whoa. Pretty young, I know. Mm-hmm. In 1987, the year of my birth, he won first prize in the Jean-Pierre Rampal International Competition in Paris, and this paved the way for an international solo career with many renowned artists and orchestras all over the world. He's done lots of festivals as well, and his performances have taken him from Paris to Seoul and London to Moscow, basically everywhere. So in 1995, he was encouraged by Gardiner, and he founded the Virtuosos of the Lyon Opera, which he performed with extensively. And since then, this kind of got him into conducting chamber orchestras of Paris and Geneva, the Prague Philharmonia, Kanazawa Ensemble in Japan, and he's done heaps and heaps of recordings, and he's currently the professor of chamber music and flute at the National Paris Conservatory. So, he's a busy man. So that's a bit about Philippe Bernold. So he knows what he's talking about. He's a very good flute player. And so we're looking at his book, The Wind, the Sound. So this is actually an extension of his original book, The Technique of the Embouchure. It contains more exercises, which leads on from Technique de Embouchure. And it's based all on various musical excerpts from orchestral, vocal, and solo repertoire. It contains 5 sections. The first is exercises for and vocalizations. So he kind of splits the air column into 2 sections. You've got the base of the air column, which is like your diaphragm, and that's like how much that is supporting the air. So he's got a lot of exercises to like help focus on activating the breath energy and your air column. Then chapter 2 or section 2 is developing your lip muscles. So these exercises are focused on the top part of the air column. And so in these he's got like a lot of exercises based on harmonics and long tones for developing your lip muscles and the control up there. Now section 3 this is a combination of the first two chapters. And this is like about controlling your airflow, so learning how to play in a very long phrase. And then the fourth section is a focus on playing legato and how to play melodies like with the feeling of a singer. And then the fifth section, I've kind of turned to the fifth section because at the end he's got heaps and heaps of notes which kind of expand on issues which come up in sections 1 to 4. So that's what we've been doing.
Hey, so my first week.
Your first week.
Okay. So my first week of Les Souffle, Les Sons. So you guys know me pretty well by now, so you can probably guess what I did first.
Googled.
I know. Googled. Well, actually, okay. So I didn't do the Google part of my normal thing because I know a bit about him already, and I'm familiar with his works a bit. And first, can I just say I love that how his first book that he published in this series of like how to like develop your air versus embouchure, like the relationship between them, is the cover is in black and white. So the top part's in black, I believe, and then the bottom part is in white. So, and that's like the staple. And then this one, which came out a couple of years ago, I forget when it came out, 2017 so? But yeah, it's in red and white on the bottom. So red's on the top and white's on the bottom. And I really liked it because it's kind of the same color as you see often with appendices and other things as well. So it has like a very liturgical, no, that's not it, sorry. That's something different. But it just like, the way it looks, they just like complement each other really nicely. So I was a big fan of that. And then I made myself a little exercise sheet. So what I did was I counted all the exercises in there, found out that besides the harmonics and the Souffle, there are 12 exercises in each section. So then I was like, I wonder how he wants us to break this down. So, because like, if you take it and divide it, so you have 12 and you divide it by 2, then you can either do one of each section a week, and then over 2 weeks, or do 2 for 1 week, and then basically you've run through the whole book. So, except for the harmonic and Souffle, which only have 6, so then you could repeat them.
Yeah.
But like either way. So I formed this little exercise sheet, and that way I could make sure that I didn't miss any as well. So that's how I started my week. I got my little like vocalises, intervals, harmonics, Souffle, Souffle, and legato sections, and then I put them into like a little table. And then I colored in the little boxes as I practiced. And I was also thinking, since it's like a French book, I would try and make it look a little more artistic as well and more beautiful. And listeners, if you want, I can share the picture on my Instagram.
Please do.
Flute. So, but so that's how I started. I got all my little ducks in a row, so I knew that I would cover the whole book in 2 weeks. And that was great. And then after that, I actually started practicing. And I found that usually for me to go through all, how many sections did you say? 5 sections? 4 sections?
No, there's four sections of exercises.
That's
but then
right.
section 5 is like the appendices, which goes into the ideas further, which kind of are covered. Yeah.
Okay, so I chose to do the version of my practice where I do 1 exercise a day, and then I do it over 2 weeks. So over the first week, I got through most of the exercises. I got through all the exercises 1 through 6, and then I took off a day on Sunday, which has kind of been our thing as well. Like we always leave 1 rest day. Yeah. So I found that going through the exercises usually took me about 30 minutes to do just 1 a day, which normally included you like, for example, for the vocalises, as I look through it, you usually start with 1, and he's kind enough that he even gives you like suggested tempos, and then you basically you play through it in all keys. So which I love doing already. So this was the way I warmed up, and it was hard because I really fell in love with the Prokofiev Romeo and Juliet one that he had. It's just one of my favorite ballets ever. And it's so pretty. So it was really hard every day not to just be like, can I just warm up with this one for a bit? But yeah, and read through his notes too. So kind of started working on like how I should be supporting my air. And I also used that exercise that Julian taught us a bit, that he did with Andy and their master classes, where first you just blow hot air over the flute while you're fingering the melody, just to kind of get the air column going like strong enough that like the strength that you need, and then followed up by every time adding a little more embouchure to that, so forming your embouchure a little more, but that way it doesn't hinder the air column. So I did that a lot for especially the vocalies. And I have to say, the thing that kicked my butt the most in week 1 was the bloody, where are those guys? What are their names again? The Souffle, Jen. They were kicking my butt. They're still kicking my butt.
It's always the long tones.
I know.
Yeah.
So yes, thank you. Yeah. So the long tones where he has you do, even like there's one that's basically you just hold a tone and then you have to change the like you just do dynamics on it. So you just crescendo, decrescendo, at a slow tempo. Yeah. But your pitch must remain the same. And it's so.
And your tone quality. It's
and tone quality. So your air column needs to remain the same, and it's just basically these itty bitty muscles in your lips. And anyways, so that was really hard and giving me stress a lot in week 1. But other than that, it was going pretty well. I was I was a big fan of the vocalies. The harmonics were going quite well too. But yeah, Souffle were kicking my butt. So, but yes, that's the end of my first week. Jen, how was your week 1?
Look, I have to say, I think we kind of tackled this book in a very similar way. I mean, you were definitely more organised about it than I was, which is unsurprising. I got to the point where I was like, okay, there are 4 sections, and so I'll just do like one exercise from each of them every day. And yes, you are correct. It divides quite beautifully into 2 weeks. I didn't even notice until I got to the end, and I was like, oh, I've done everything. Fantastic. Which I would have known if I'd actually bothered to count them, which of course I didn't. Anyway, but there you go. So yeah, this book is quite nice and clear in how get started, like how to tackle it really. Like it's not a very confusing book. The setup was really nice and clear. And I also really appreciated how all of the exercises increased in difficulty as you went through. So number 1 is not too bad, particularly in the vocalies, like we're on Beethoven's Symphony.
Oh yes.
And like the intervals aren't crazy, which you're having to jump around, of course. And then like by vocalies number 4, or like by the end of the week on vocalies number 6, like you're playing the concerto, the flute concerto, and right. You know there's like a lot more intervals and some tricky like E flats and F sharps in there which you got to hit with enough support. So I went a lot back to the appendices, or like section 5, to try and figure out what he meant. So for section 1, I found it very interesting about his, I really liked this use of just working on your energy of your breath and just increasing it. Although I did find it was interesting. I hadn't realised how much control of intonation I was doing with my lips until I stopped using them in the first exercise, and was just purely basically going on it was like, holy moly, what's happening? So that was interesting, but also I really liked how even the sound became through all of the registers, and it was really easy to keep the lips relaxed so that you could play the low register after going into the top register. I really liked that part of the vocalies. And then the intervals also, you know, the interval section in section 1, like, I liked how the intervals just got slightly bigger every day. So we started off with, like, steps. And then interval number 2, we had, like, maybe some thirds. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger about all the intervals that we had to do until by, like, number 6 we were doing octaves. Bye. So yeah, I liked the gradient of how you move them. But I have to say my favourite I think was section 2 with the harmonics. And I don't know I've completely forgotten, but is this the first time we've had harmonics incorporated into our methodology that we've covered?
You know what? I think it is.
I think it is, right? Because I cannot.
Yeah, the only one I could think that maybe had it would be, I know that in the huge Taffanel and Gobert, in some of the etudes, they wrote them out, but it wasn't included in their daily practice, which is what we focus on.
Yeah.
And the only one I could think that maybe did it was De La Sonorité, but I'd have to go back and look. That's a great question, but this one is the first one I think that focused very heavily on them. Like, it was a whole chapter.
It was a whole,
section, sorry.
Yeah, in the chapter. Yeah.
Right.
So I really liked the harmonics, because yes, it was how that kind of created a focus on the lips and helped you like work on like the very fine control. I mean, I have to say, like, the harmonics exercises, they're not incredibly like they're not the most complex ones I've ever done. Like, they're pretty simple. Like, he doesn't go into the super high ones, and he doesn't, like, I mean, it's nothing like Robert Dick's ones,
which are amazing, and yes, but they're
and fiendish.
They're different. Yeah, fiendish is perfect. Yes.
But what I found interesting, this harmonics one, like, he wrote, maybe he talks about this in the previous book. He talks a lot about, with the harmonics, you keep the air at a forte, but you purse your lips on the harmonics to play the long tone. But then it seemed to imply that you kept pursing, you diminuendo through continuing to purse your lips rather than decreasing your air. But I don't know if I read that wrong.
Oh, that's a good... I
see, like on page 35, purse your lips to move to the upper octave. Yes, okay. But keep the same blowing intensity. And he's got the lips going from forte with the diminuendo to piano, but the airflow stays at forte the whole way through. Yes. And I was like, does that mean that I'm diminuending on the harmonic through closing my lips till, well, they're closed?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's too funny. So for me, my professor in Texas, her big thing is harmonics, and usually I incorporate them already into my daily practice. Like, usually that's one of the things I do first. So I didn't really think about it much when I was reading this book, but now that you're talking about it, I was just like, oh, harmonics. Okay, I'll do some harmonics. But yeah, no, I think that's also how Julienne explained it to me a while back. Basically, your airflow stays the same, and then you just close your lips more, and if you do it correctly, then the harmonics just come out perfect. So because like the intensity, if it becomes more intense, and but the air always, the capacity of the air stays the same.
But when you're doing the diminuendo, are you using that? Are you controlling that diminuendo just through your lips? Is that what he's saying, or also through your air?
I think it's just like your airflow always stays a forte.
I'll have to play around with that, because I still did the harmonic diminuendo with a mixture. So that was an interesting thought I was dealing with. Of course, long notes were, we will just skip them. And that was my week one. There we go.
So, week 2, I was working through, so I was on the second part of most of the sections, and to be completely honest, I had not started reading the bit in the back, part 5 yet, about his like notes of how to, going a little further or doing a little extra. So in week 2, I finally started reading through that, through this section, and then I was like, why didn't I read this section earlier? This is gold. These tips are amazing. Like, he has so many good recommendations, and then, for the part of me who just likes to research stuff, he references so many books I've never even heard of. So there's this French one from a woman who talks about like how to best control your air, Amy Benoit. Never heard of it, which maybe that's a failure. Yes, and hopefully it's not just in French.
Oh my God.
Luckily, there's a lot of good translation apps out there now, but it would be a little annoying. But yes, so I was really enjoying that, and I loved how when he does it, how he discusses at the end about the exercises. He says, strictly speaking, these are not exercises, but a compilation of musical excerpts. And then like he talks about like how like a lot of music is based on this, and what is the point of exercise anyways, and it was just really interesting because I think oftentimes people are like, oh yeah, I have to like do, at least my students are like, yeah, we gotta do this. It's like, yeah, but we're doing these exercises in context for music, so I mean you should always be playing them musically. And I know I've also been in the point where it's like, well, I need to run through these so that this passage sounds more fluid, but if I actually made it a little more intentional, which luckily thanks to like Inner Game of Music and Smiley Mind and a few other things we've done, like it is more of a part of my practice. But it was just really nice to see that written down in a book or in a method, and they're like, yeah, this is why we do that, and this is why I arranged this book accordingly. So yes, I found the warm-ups really helpful back when we were also doing the Sharon Sparrow 6 weeks to finals. And then I also noticed this week, I mean, it's definitely not to do with the weather, because here in Germany, in fall at the beginning, it's just rain. Kind of similar to you. So the weather was not that great. But overall, I was noticing that I was feeling really happy and chipper all the time as compared to other weeks. So I don't know if it's me finally... But yeah, so I was a lot happier this week. So I don't know if that's a direct correlation to me using a lot more of these excerpts like in a breathing way. But I also had a few rehearsals this past week, which I really enjoyed, because it's that's what we discussed it last week. Part of the reason we love doing music is this option to collaborate with other people and just create something beautiful together. So that was really nice. And I used the warm-ups a lot to help me kind of prepare for those rehearsals too. So, because for one of them we're doing a version of Debussy, Prelude to the Afternoon of the Fallen, because he does it like, of course he has it there in the original form, but then he also starts it a little lower and then goes a lot higher. By the end, the first time I ran through it, I was not able to do all of them on one breath. By the end of week 2, I was able to do the majority of them on one breath at the tempo he sets. So that was really cool. I was really proud of myself. And I love that he included Le Mer Noir. So because as much as I used to not like that piece, I love it now. It's just the perfect combination for me of flute and jazz and classical. Like, it's not too over the top because it has these like jazz elements to it, but it's also like very classical, and like I just love blackbirds too.
Right.
So that was kind of a quick summary of my week 2. I had a lot of fun with the section 5 in the back of the book, and then I also just kind of worked on some other stuff and was just generally happier. And I don't know if that's related to the sound, the air work that we were doing, or if it was related to the rainy weather here in Germany. But yes, that was the case.
That sounds amazing.
Aw, thanks. So how was your week 2?
Like you with this week, I kind of I was looking a lot at the section 5, or where he's like going into more depth about detail about all the different aspects of playing with these exercises. Like there's a piece that's like some kind of battle going on between philosophies of Moyes and Debost with how to produce sound with the flute the best way. So Moyes is kind of all into like you move the jaw and you adjust the lips to create the difference, to change between the pitches and create the flow and the shape of the phrase. Whereas Debost seems like he was like, don't ever move your jaw, just keep it the same and just control it all with your column of air. And it seems like Bernold has been like, both of them are really great. However, I think I'm going to combine them, and that way we can create, of course the sound can be carried on the air column, which gives us great resonance and support. But then, like Moyes, when we move the jaw, we adjust the jaw slightly, or we change our lips, like with the harmonics exercises. That's like when we can create all the different colours. And so I really liked I didn't realise there was such a battle of philosophies, but that kind of made it really clear because I've had both things said to me kind of separately from different people and how to do things. So that was interesting. I kind of want to read up about this more. It's like I like the idea of there being a musical battle, like what was there? Liszt and Chopin had a musical battle. They had like that playoff.
Chopin and Liszt, right? Yeah, they were like little...
I like the idea of there being like a playoff between Moyes and the boss. Anyway.
It's really interesting too because they're both French flutists as well. So they both, were very... I mean, Dubost eventually went to America and he teaches at Oberlin, or was teaching in Oberlin. He may have... I need to check that. But then, Moyes was very much, But then he also went to America, too. Wasn't he living in Vermont, as we discovered? Like, one of the last ones? Like, he had helped founded
he was teaching.
the whole music festival over there in the East Coast.
Yeah.
So,
that's right.
Yeah, so they're both French flutists who came to America with these two different styles. I mean, if we really wanted to delve into it, we can also throw Julius Baker into the mix, too, because I know he's controversial in the flute world as well. I mean... Undoubtedly phenomenal flute player, that's not in question, but how he approached the flute has been talked about in like essays and studies as well. So but it's interesting like how people approach this goal of creating the best music or creating the music and then how they arrive there. But I mean, I think it's just like everything in life, moderation. I think maybe keeping the jaw in the same place all the time would create more tension, right? Because it's not able to move, which is a very non-organic,
unnatural
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
Whereas maybe moving the jaw too much, it becomes mechanical in nature. It's like, oh, I'm doing E3, jaw must go 0.2 down, and blah blah blah. So I think that the approach of combining the two a little bit is definitely a little more natural, and maybe helps take out some of the things that deter from the performance itself. We can use one of our formulas from last week as well here. So that's a great takeaway. Okay, so in week 2, so you're reading through that and focusing on your jaw.
Yes.
Have you noticed that the jaw work has affected your flute playing at all? Like, because I think you might be also prepping for another audition, if I've heard it correctly.
I am,
okay.
but this is like it's mostly on the piccolo, which is another reason why this has been really great to kind of work on while I'm doing that, because the piccolo is... It's very micro. It's a micro instrument. It's a micro flute. And everything is micro. So it's been really nice to kind of warm up with, I really like how he, like this idea of always starting your practice with repertoire, so that you kind of always have this idea that, yes, we're not playing mechanical exercises, we're playing music, and everything is feeding into the music. That's why we do these exercises. Oh, yes, and my air. So I liked how we got to, like, it's just a really, it kept me being really relaxed, and also I'd finish up my practice with it as a bit of a warm down as well. Particularly, I really liked the first one of using the air column, but just keeping the mouth really relaxed and unfocused, just to kind of get the energy of the air column. And also the harmonics, like just focusing on the two things to kind of wind down after piccolo playing, because everything does get quite fatigued.
Oh yeah.
When you play pick. So I liked it, and I also really liked section 4, where you were told to play like a singer, which is definitely something he's got from Moyes, because I think Moyes did his whole interpretation tone.
Yeah, where he used tons of opera arias.
Exactly. And like he looked at how singers created their sound through their air. And I mean, I like how he says in the preface to section 4 how he talks about the singers, and he talks about how the way the singer connects notes through breathing and breath control, and he makes the sound flow from one pitch to the other. And you can notice how much more intense the emotional expression is used in the singing of wider intervals. So, and also I really enjoyed how he said, don't use vibrato. And he brought it back to this idea of, like, the clarinet and the piano are incredibly expressive, but they don't use vibrato to be expressive. So that that was fun.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that only like 20th century vibrato's been mentioned in writing, and that was actually by Moyes in 1905, I think. And he was the first one who wrote about vibrato. So how that changed my playing and whether I could create a dramatic forte without relying on vibrato like normally I would. So, yeah, that was probably my week too. It was playing, enjoying the music, creating drama with high intervals, warming down with these exercises, which was really nice. And I think it all really comes down to what he says when he's talking about the vocalization, that your sound is to be simple without tension. So I think that was my week too, was trying to attain a sound which was simple without tension, and it was very, very nice.
Well, let me slide right into our verdicts, because now I want to ask you. So, Jen, how did it... Yes. Were you able to play simply and without tension? Do you think that this book helped you achieve this state of flute playing? Do you think it will remain on your music stand?
I think it will. I like that it's so concise. I think it works really, really well as a warm-up, so I think this is going to be on my stand for quite a while. Have I achieved it perfectly yet? No, but life is a journey, and
yes,
I will continue journeying. Yeah. So yes, I think this is definitely one of my favourites that we have ever done. I really like this one, and I'm kind of keen to have a look at his first book. Yeah. So very much, I think this stays on the stand. How about you, Alex?
Yes. Okay. So my verdict. I mean, I have to say, I use this book already a lot. Some warm-ups, but it was so nice to just work through it in its entirety, and I really noticed how it's really helped not only my breath control, but like how I'm using the breath when I perform or when I practice as well. Like, instead of just being this like nervous aspect, it's like, oh no, it's just, it's a part of the process, and keeping it just really helped enforce a lot of the things that we've discussed previously in other episodes as well, like with the inner game of music and the self 1 and 2, and like making sure it's just always very natural, very, like without tension. So I really enjoyed that, and I had a lot of fun playing through all this. So yes, it will definitely be staying on my stand. Just because I just love how he's implemented all of these excerpts into exercises, even though I like how you mentioned at the end that he just like, I'm not a big fan of exercises, so I wouldn't necessarily call these exercises. And when you look at it, it's not exercises, it's harmonics number 4, it's harmonic number 3. So it doesn't actually say exercise in there. And I think it's a great starting point for anyone who maybe is a little wary about building their own warm-ups, or like how to develop excerpts or warm-ups for excerpts as well. Like when you're prepping for auditions, like this is a nice little blueprint of like, here's what he's done, and then you can like go forth and try to do it on your own as well. So, because he just lays it out so nicely. So yes, I would highly recommend this book too, and it will definitely be staying on my stand.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's it for this week for us. So
that is it for this week. Our anniversary edition.
Yeah, the anniversary podcast is now come to a close. But yes, listeners, so thank you so much for supporting us for the last year. We love hearing from y'all and all your comments and everything that you send to us, so thank you so much. If you want to write to us again, or want to be a first-time writer, feel free to do so at thepracticeodyssey@gmail.com. Details in our show notes. You can listen to us on YouTube by searching the Practice Odyssey podcast. The music in this episode was written by me, Alessandra Woods, and the show art comes from the fabulous Ivan Potter Smith. Go check him out. Until next week, this is Alex signing off.
And Jen.
So take care.
Bye.